Hi sewers, I'm Carrie and this is So Darn Fun, a channel that focuses on clothing alterations, pattern reviews, and other fun sewing how-tos. Do you have a formal dress where the bust size is just way too big, like the cup size is too big, but it fits around the back? Taking in the side seams will not fix this issue because this just falls away. Today we're going to work on a wedding dress that has the same issue. We're going to take in that cup sizing so that it will fit my bride perfectly. Stick around with me and let's walk through this together. But before we get on with the video, I'd like to remind you to give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, and if you hit the bell, you'll be notified of any future videos that I put out. Now on to the project for today. Here's a close-up of the bust area of this cutie wedding dress, and you can see right away that there's a big problem here. The bust area is cut way too big for my bride, so I have pinned in all the extra. We have two layers. We've got a lace layer, and if I peel it down, you can see we have like a strapless satin and lining area underneath, and of course it is boned, that satin portion. In looking at the lace, if I was to take the pins out, the lace is flat. It almost looks like just a flat piece, but I knew there had to be shaping in there. And upon closer inspection, there's darting that starts right here, and it lets out right about here, and then the rest is flat. The satin portion underneath, of course, is princess seamed all the way from the top down to the waist. So of course we think, well, how do we make this the right shape? And I think we just make this dart into a princess seam all the way to the top. So that's going to be the plan. There's also this lace scallop all the way around, and it is not pieced together anywhere here. So what's going to happen is this piece is going to come off all the way around. I'll just reattach it once I've got all the shaping done. I'm going to do the satin part first and get this to be the correct shape so that when I do the lace, I can just make sure that it lays nice and flat. But we've got the boning in here. So this is just a quick overview of the dilemma with this poor little dress. And we'll sit down and start plucking out some of those stitches and show you how we will make this fit correctly. Before I take the pins out, I'm going to need to mark where the pins are at so I don't lose track of my lines here. I use a Frixion pen, and the Frixion pen disappears with heat. However, when it does disappear, it leaves a little bit of a whitish mark on satin, so I make sure that I always put it in a place that's not going to be too conspicuous. Also, freezing temperatures will bring the mark back, so I always make sure that the bride isn't going to be wearing the dress in the middle of winter outside where it's going to be frozen. Anyway, I find this the most convenient type of pen to use that's easy to mark with, and it will disappear very easily. And I never need to sharpen it either. I'm going to mark on the inside, right where this pin, where I see the pin holding the fabric together. And I know that my pinning is not perfect, and each side is going to be pinned just a little bit differently. So I'll mark both sides, and then I'm going to measure the total that each point needs to be taken in, and then I will remark with those measurements evenly divided between these two seams. I have it. Yeah, okay, I've got them all marked. The new markings are now in purple, and pretty much there wasn't that much of a difference between my orange markings, except for around the top area. I'm not going to draw the line all the way out until I get this boning out and I'm able to really get this fabric in the right position for stitching. So right now I'm going to work on getting into the bodice here in between the layers, so that I can take that boning out, because the boning is stitched to the lining right here. You can see the stitching on either side of the seam. The boning is right there. It appears that the only way that I can access this seam is to pluck apart this waist seam Everything is fastened through here. Everything is fastened through here. Nothing is loose between the layers. I mean, I can't pull like the skirt away from, everything is just solid. So this is the inside, and I've picked the seam from this low part where the lining to the skirt is, just so that I can access the seam where the top is shoved into. And I've got some of that picked away. And then it's still sewn together. See, it went like this. So all that was fastened together. And this is the outer waistband all the way through all these bodice layers and the inner waistband here. Everything very well sewn together. Now I've got the lining and the outer layer all layered together here. So now I just need to pluck out these stitches so that I can open the lining and the outer layer, access this seam, get that boning out so that I can take that seam in and then replace the boning. And here we are, here's our glimpse. Got those layers apart, and ta-da, in there's the boning. So now we're going to have to turn this inside out through this very small hole, maybe widen that hole a little bit so we can take care of that seam, that trouble seam. So much work. It'll be worth it though. Okay, I've gotten into the dress successfully. The boning was along this seam right here. This is the seam that from the outside I have marked. You can see the markings through the fabric and right there. One thing that I need to mark again now is the other side of the fabric. So this was the lining. So this is going to be the side that's actually facing the outside with the lace that's going to be on top. But this needs to have the same markings as this. So I'll mark this. I won't bore you with it, but I'll mark this the same that I did this. And then when they're marked, I will sew both of them. A small hint for when you're getting into a dress that has a whole bunch of boning on all the other seams, you're constantly fighting with it. And yeah, it's hard. But when I turned this inside out and I saw this little strip of boning kept wanting to pop over that way, I just decided to take a big old safety pin and pin it through all the layers that I'm dealing with just to kind of keep it out of the way. So if I need to do that for any of the other boning, I will. Use those safety pins and get that boning out of the way, because yeah, it is a pain and it is like a fight, but we will keep persevering. Here are both my stitching lines for both of the halves. I have them drawn on. Now I will take them to the machine. Here's my new seams. I've trimmed this one. This one I still need to trim. I already knew that at the top, because when you're taking in a convex and a concave seam, which is a princess seam, that there will be some unevenness at the top when there's a lot taken in. I'll need to even out the neckline, which we'll see. This is such a neckline that's pretty high on the gal that it's not going to hurt if I have to shorten the neck level along these princess seams. But I just wanted you to see where I am right now, getting ready to trim this one here. All right, I've got these seams pressed open. It was rather tricky and consisted partly of using the narrow edge of a sleeve board and also the use of a dish towel, where I could poke the dish towel up there, kind of wad it up, and very carefully use my iron to press that open. And I did that to both sides. Now what I'm facing is the boning, because the boning goes on this long edge here, and I am not about to take this entire bodice off and disassemble the whole thing just so that I can top stitch this on, because all these other ones are top stitched through the layer and the boning. But I think what I'm going to do is I will do this one so it'll be kind of hidden on the inside by just stitching the side to the seam allowance on the inside on one side, and then I can kind of scooch it over and then stitch it to the other side. So it'll be stitched down to the seam allowance just on the inside. It won't show on the outside like originally, but that's okay, it's the inside. And the bride won't even know. I can guarantee that. This is the side I've done. I've sewn the top, turned it right side out and pressed it. And here's a really great view so that you can see how much fullness was actually taken in. This one is untouched and you can see the big curve right here. That does not fit the wearer of this dress. And over here, how it's much less pronounced. It's gonna fit her so much better than this huge profile. Yeah, that's gonna work out well. Okay, here we have the satin part finished. The outside and the inside lining, everything's all sewn together. The bust line has much less of a profile, which is what we need. Now, the lace layer here. I've got this pinned in just like I did the satin layer. Remember, I've got some darts down here. You can't see them because I've got it pinned in, but they only go up to here. Obviously, I'm going to take a deeper dart right before that dart ends, and then just continue making our own dart all the way up to the top. I need to even out the left and the right side and make sure that they both go up straight at the same point on either side of center front so that they are actually even. So it's hard to draw on the lace, so I might do marking with a thread, and then I will show you what I've done before I actually sew it. So my next step is to remove these pins, and I will turn this, of course, right sides together, matching the threads, and stitching basically along the threads down into the existing dart to get our new shaping. Let's go do it. And here's what it looks like. I've left the center marker in just for reference. We've got the dart sewn. You can see I pressed them open, sliced it and pressed it open. On the other side. So we've taken a very, very protruding bust line and flattened it out quite significantly. I think that's going to look great on her. Now we just need to replace this lace on the top, and it needs to go all the way to the back. Now, I do need to take in along the back sleeve seams, but I'm not going to show that. It is worth mentioning that this lace and this zipper and this lace that they've got coming up the back, they do a pretty tricky dance with each other as to how they wrap around and stuff. I took photos. It's always a good thing to take a couple little photos. I took close-ups so that I can remember exactly how these things are all twisted together so that when I put it back together, it will be perfect. So I recommend taking photos. How about I finish this up, and once I get this lace back on, I'll show you how beautiful it is. And here is our new view of our finished front bodice that's been taken in with the lace layers and the satin layers underneath, and you'll see that it gives her a nice flatter profile than it did before, where it was angled out quite a bit. Got the lace reattached at the top, and we're finished. Thank you for watching this episode of So Darn Fun. I want to thank you for joining me today as we walked through this alteration. I hope that you found it useful. If you liked this video, please give me a like, a subscribe, and hit that bell so that you can be notified of any future videos that I put out. I hope that you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.